A competition for the creation of the Palace of the Soviets in Moscow was the key event in the history of Russian culture. It took several decades to design the palace, and though the building was never built, the competition proposals, their demonstrations, and discussions had a significant influence on the shaping of the Soviet architecture. The history of the competition begins in 1922, when it was decided to build a House of USSR in Moscow. 2 years later, the Association of New Architects, as NOVA, came up with the idea of the creation of the Palace of the Soviets. A preliminary stage of the competition gathered 16 innovative avant-garde proposals, but all of them have been widely criticized in the media. In this way, the ideas of representatives of the avant-garde in the Soviet Union were discredited. The conditions of the open all-union competition were published in the newspaper Izvestia in 1931. 272 projects were proposed for the contest. Among the authors of projects were the architects of different schools: the Vezhnina brothers, Nikolai Ladovsky, Alexei Shustov, Ivan Zoltowskiy, Alexei Dushkin, Vladimir Shuko, and Vladimir Gelfreich. At the beginning of 1932, the contest jury awarded 3 first prizes to Boris Ivan, Ivan Zoltowskiy, and an American architect, Hector Hamilton. When the winners of the competition for the most important building of the country were announced, the architectural academician Zoltowskiy had already been generally recognized as a talented master of neo-Renaissance and neoclassicism. His project for the Palace of the Soviets was a monumental ensemble that referred to the buildings of Republican Rome. The entrance area of the ensemble was framed with rows of columns and flanked by a high, square, tiered tower with a sculptural composition on the top. Behind the tower, there was the front yard area, namely a trapeze-shaped plaza. Framed by a colonnade, it wasn't connected with streets and the quay. A round-shaped great hall was situated at the center of the composition. It resembled an ancient amphitheater, the Roman Colosseum in particular. The courtyard behind the great hall looked to the street Volkhonka and Moscow River embankment. Across the courtyard, there was a small hall, accomplished in the shape of a semicircle, similar to the Greek theater. Zoltowskiy's project was intended as a completely new urban ensemble, situated in the existing city environment. The fortification, with narrow loophole windows, framed the small hall. Altogether, with the wall and the entrance tower, the composition referred to the buildings of the Moscow Kremlin. Zoltowskiy's Palace of the Soviets was among the projects that most consistently developed the idea of architectural historicism. The complex of the main building was based on classical techniques, particularly on a combination of the large cylindrical volume of the building, plaza, and a vertical tower. The architect proposed the direct adaptation of the order system and was criticized for dead imitation of the classics and the lack of creative approach to the heritage of past eras. However, the tendency towards regularity and symmetry, the attempt to subordinate volumes hierarchically, and the idea of a large-scale and majestic ensemble were in accordance with the new official architecture. It provided the project with the highest award.